Okay, welcome back. We are picking up on slide 24 that we left off on during the first hour. So I'll repeat that slide. He gave me this explanation. The fourth beast is the fourth kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from all other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. Okay. 10 kings will come from this kingdom. Since we're going to have plenty of time, I think I'll go ahead and expand on that. This kingdom is the Roman Empire. Remember, they all come out of the Roman Empire. All these different kingdoms, the area of the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire includes all the other kingdoms. Okay, that's what he's talking about here. After them, another king will arise, different from the earlier ones of the 10. This one will be the little horn that we talked about last hour. He will subdue 3 kings. He'll speak against the Most High, oppress his saints, and try to change the set times and the laws. The saints will be handed over to him for a time, times and half a time. The saints, but the court will sit. That's the divine council in heaven. Psalm 82, Deuteronomy 32, other places. I think Psalm 89 or something like that. The court will sit and his power will be taken away and completely destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty, power, and greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven will be handed over to the saints. That becomes then the world under the whole heaven. The people of the Most High. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom. His kingdom is the people of the Most High, or the Most High. It'll be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will worship and obey him. This is the end of the matter. I, Daniel, was deeply troubled by my thoughts. My face turned pale, but I kept the matter to myself. The fourth beast is the final kingdom on the earth prior to the second coming. It will be led by the Antichrist, who was the little horn that spoke boastfully and persecuted the saints. This kingdom will be destroyed when Jesus returns and throws the Antichrist into the lake of fire, along with the false prophet, setting up the messianic kingdom of 1,000 years. The Antichrist kingdom, the fourth beast that Daniel saw with 10 horns, is also described in chapter 13. Another recapitulation, another dual reference. And I saw a beast coming out of the sea. He had 10 horns and 7 heads. He had 10 horns and 7 heads with 10 crowns on his horns. Okay, the horns signify military. The crowns signify national rulership. Okay. The 10 horns with 7 heads. So 3 of them have militaries, but not official government sanction. That's probably the easiest way to explain that. With 10 crowns on his horns. So there are 3 that aren't under the heads, but are on the horns. And on each head, a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, feet like those of a bear and mouth like that of a lion. Remember, but those are the Nebuchadnezzar vision that Daniel told him about. When Daniel received his vision, he watched as kingdoms resembling a lion, a bear, and a leopard all came out of the sea, Gentiles, followed by the fourth terrible beast kingdom with 10 horns. When John saw this fourth beast in Revelation, he writes that it has the characteristics of the former kingdoms. It resembles a leopard, has feet like a bear and mouth like a lion. The order of the descriptions may be reversed because Daniel was looking forward in time, while John in his vision was looking back. Revelation continues to describe this beast and then mentions the Antichrist in terms that are very similar to those given by Daniel. The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies and to exercise his authority for 42 months. He opened his mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name and his dwelling place and those who live in heaven. Who do you think he was? Who are those who are living in heaven? Well, those are the angels that did not fall. And then maybe somebody else. He was given power to make war against the saints and to conquer them. He was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast. Remember, Eretz, the word for land and earth. I'll have to check this one and make sure, because there is a different word for earth, and I haven't checked this one yet. All whose names have not been written in the book of life belonging to the Lamb that was slain from the creation of the world. Okay, so what happened is that from the foundation of the world, probably some of the divine council people, messengers, kept track and put people's names in the book of life. There are those that say, well, everybody's name was put in the book of life, and then you can have it erased if you're not good. Okay. This says that they're written in the book. And and people who do that, your name can be erased from the book of life, are those who want to control your behavior. If you're not good enough, then God will scratch your name out. Okay. Pay no attention to those people. Okay. Pay no attention to those people. Final rebellious kingdom on the earth will be the kingdom of the Antichrist New World Order. It will establish a mandatory and universal religion that will focus on the image of the Antichrist. And it will establish a mandatory economic system based on the mark of the beast. Every person within this kingdom will be forced to take the mark, and people will not be able to buy or sell without it. The kingdom will achieve its greatest power during the last 3.5 years of the 70th week, and finally it will be destroyed at the second coming. The Bible's end-time prophecies do not only focus on the kingdom of the Antichrist, the Bible also devotes a great deal of attention to the other end-times power. This power is introduced in Revelation as a mystery, and she is named Babylon the Great. Here it is. One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute who sits on many waters." What does many waters represent? Remember, water represents Gentiles, seas and waters. Just a preview. Remember when Satan, the dragon, goes after the woman and her remnant, the remnant of her children? What does he do? He spits a river of water out of his mouth to get them. And what does it say? The land comes out and saves them by opening up holes for the water to go into so it doesn't drown the Israelites. Probably a reference to the crossing of the Red Sea when they escaped from Egypt. Probably similar type of situation. Okay. With her, the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. Okay. This is all about orgies and all of that stuff. Okay. Drunken sexual orgies that you're familiar with if you've studied any history of the ancient pagans, or the modern pagans for that matter. With her, the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. Then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a desert. Where did she sit before? In many waters, right? Now the spirit takes him to a desert. Then I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was now in the land area that we'll reveal later. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand, filled with the abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. This title was written on her forehead: Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. Do you think she was important? In other words, do you think she's important now? Because religious and economic, and they all throw in their military in with her because of the religious and economic. Okay, so it's. I need to move my chair a little bit here. Okay. Okay. Let's do it that way. Where I can reach everything easier. All right. The beast that the woman sits on represents the final global kingdom, as described by Daniel and Revelation 13. The 7 heads of the beast are explained as representing 7 kingdoms. Kingdoms are always led by a king. So kingdom and kings are pretty much interchangeable. Okay. The 7 heads of the beast are representing 7 kings. And then the beast is also explained as an 8th king. He receives kingship after all the rest of them. Remember, he grew up after all of the 10 were there. The beast is a kingdom as well as a king. The 10 horns of the beast are described as 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. So something happens. Some world thing happens that they all receive kingdoms. They're going to divide the world up. Okay, I don't remember how many areas the World Economic Forum wants to divide the world into, if it should be the World Economic Forum. I know that the United States at one time was divided up into several different areas to be ruled by different United Nations countries and so on. They had a map. So something like that. Somebody's going to decide that the world needs to be divided up into 8 divisions, and each one of these kings will be given that authority and power. Okay. But notice how long. 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. It's not going to last long. Okay. This is when they put it all together and before the battle of Harmageddon. We'll learn about that battle too, because there's a lot to know about that. And so they won't last long, because how does they all be destroyed? Breathed out of his mouth and they're all gone. Okay. They have one purpose and will give their power and authority to the beast. When Babylon the Great is first shown, she sits astride the beast. She's controlling the beast. You know, if you're sitting on a horse, that pretty much indicates you're controlling the horse or whatever you're riding. Okay, camel, elephant, whatever. So she's in charge. She exercises the power of the beast kingdom, and she is the greatest political power in the world. I tend to think because of her pagan, idolatrous religion. Okay, you see what's happening more and more and more in our country with Christian identification going from like in this 90% down to like less than half now, or less than 40-some% identify as Christian. And of course, that's not, I mean, that includes Catholics and other people who may or may not be Christians at all. So they estimate that the true number of believers in Jesus Christ are probably around 5 to 7% of the population. Okay. Okay, we can go ahead and swing slides now. The angel explains to John what she represents, what Babylon the Great represents. The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. For a long time, people picked that as Rome. Then they picked that as the United States, be Washington, D.C., or New York City, or Brussels, Belgium, City of London, and London. A lot of different people have been, a lot of different cities have been identified by different so-called prophets. Okay, we know which one it is. No, they don't. Okay. However, when the Antichrist, the king aspect of the beast, becomes a public figure and rises up among the 10 kings as described in Daniel, he will come into conflict with Babylon the Great. Why? Because he's number one in his own mind, and according to his backer, Satan, he's supposed to rule the world. Okay. Prior to the Antichrist, the woman rules over the kings of the earth, including the 10 kings. But when the Antichrist appears, these 10 kings will embrace him for their sole purpose. God has put it in their mind, in their heart, to give the Antichrist their power and authority. Okay. God says, this is what people want, you're going to get it. So he puts it in their mind to give it to them, to him. When he appears, the woman will no longer be useful, and the supporters of the New World Order will turn on her and attack her. That's chapter 17. We'll see that. Here's the passage. The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to give the beast their power to rule until God's words are fulfilled. Okay. God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to give the beast their power to rule. The Antichrist and Babylon the Great will become bitter enemies. Babylon will exercise global power before the Antichrist. But after he appears, the beast and the 10 kings will attack Babylon, shifting global power into the hands of the beast. Daniel wrote that the beast would devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. Babylon will be the most significant casualty in the Antichrist's ruthless rise to power. Let us examine other aspects of Babylon the Great, the last global power before the rise of the Antichrist. Her descriptions are given primarily in Revelation 17 and 18. But the Old Testament also contains many predictions that must refer to end times Babylon as well. Those predictions can be found in Isaiah 13 and 14 and Jeremiah 50 and 51, among other texts. The prophetic descriptions in Revelation combine to create a very clear picture of Babylon the Great. Babylon will lead the nations of the earth into adultery. This should be understood as adultery in a spiritual sense. In the Old Testament, Israel was also described as an adulterous nation because she often cheated on the Lord and turned to other gods. That's the number one meaning outside of marriage. Adultery is spiritual. Okay. The same should be understood of Babylon. She is a power that has rejected God and turned to other forms of worship, the chief of these being materialism. All pagan religions are materialistic. Sex, drugs, chemicals, and material. That's how their religions operate. That's the big three of false religion. With her, the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. There's your sex, and spiritual adultery, and her chemical with the intoxication. Okay? For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her adulteries. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her. And the kings of the earth who committed adultery with her and shared her luxury see the smoke of her burning. They will weep and mourn over her. Salvation and glory and power belong to our God, for true and just are his judgments. He has condemned the great prostitute who corrupted the earth by her adultery. So it is religious that causes her to corrupt the earth. It's not materialism isn't number one. Materialism is a big part of the religion, but it's not number one. Religion is number one. Babylon's worship of materialism is shown through her emphasis on riches, luxury, and the material things of the world. Her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes. Give back to her as she has given. Give her as much torture and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself. The merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries. Babylon is a great consumer of material goods. Who would you say, if this were to happen now, who would you say that is? United States of America fits the picture of Babylon. And in the aspects that it does not yet, it is fast approaching that. So if it remains, it will fulfill my prophecy of 50 years ago that if the United States is in prophecy, it's because we're the bad guys. Okay? So that's something to think about in your life, because if that's true, things are going to get worse and worse in the United States. So the merchants of the earth, this is the passage that develops the material goods consumership. And when she falls, the merchants mourn over their loss of revenue. Oh, gee, she's gone. We feel so bad about that because we've lost our income. Okay. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargoes anymore. Listen to the cargoes: gold, silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet cloth, every sort of citron wood, articles of every kind made of ivory, costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble, cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh, and frankincense, of wine and olive oil, of fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and carriages, and bodies and souls of men. It's human trafficking is the last on the list there. They will say, the fruit you longed for is gone from you. All your riches and splendor have vanished, never to be recovered. The merchants who sold these things and gained their wealth from her will stand far off, terrified at her torment. They will weep and mourn and cry out, woe, woe, O great city, dressed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. In 1 hour, such great wealth has been brought to ruin. Remember that 1 hour? They'll receive power for an hour. 1 hour, she's brought to ruin. Probably a connection there. God doesn't just pick words because they sound good. Okay, he has reasons. Babylon's focus on materialism is clearly expressed when the merchants say, the fruit you longed for is gone from you. All your riches have vanished. Babylon's greatness comes from her emphasis on trade and from the riches she offers to the powerful few all over the world. For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her adulteries. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries. When the kings of the earth who committed adultery with her and shared her luxury see the smoke of her burning, they will weep and mourn over her. The merchants who sold these things and gained their wealth from her will stand far off, terrified at her torment, probably worried that they're next. Okay. Woe, woe, great city, all who had ships on the sea became rich through her wealth. In 1 hour, she has been brought to ruin. Verse 23, your merchants were the world's great men, but your magic spell, by your magic spell, all the nations were led astray. How do you work magic? Drugs, sorcery, power of Satan and demons assisting you. It's all spirit kind rebellion and war. Okay, that's why I wanted to show that documentary. Hope you enjoyed it, even though you couldn't hear it or see it most of the time. We'll do that next week. I'll find out what went wrong here. I've had that happen in the past with things, and I thought I had it all fixed. But I will test it next time beforehand. When the kings, okay, it's a major port city. Major port city. Well, that can't be Washington, D.C. on the Potomac. Can't be Brussels, Belgium, because it doesn't have a seaport. London doesn't have a seaport. Paris doesn't have a seaport. So we're kind of running out of potentials. They're building a new seaport for Turkey. So that could be one. New York, that's a big seaport, isn't it? Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego. So there are some candidates, but I'll leave that to the prophets to be able to speculate about that. I'll just report what the word says. Babylon, a major port city, and is described as the greatest and richest city the world has ever seen. Wait a minute. What about Dubai? What about Dubai? When the kings of the earth see the smoke of her burning, they will stand far off and cry, woe, woe, O great city, Babylon, city of power, in 1 hour your doom has come. When the kings of the earth see the smoke of her burning, they'll stand off and cry, woe, woe, woe. Every sea captain and all who travel by ship, that would be the cruise lines, the sailors and all who earn their living from the sea will stand far off. When they see the smoke of her burning, they will exclaim, was there ever a city like this great city? Now I don't think I have it in here, so I'm just going to remind you of this. What happens when the mountain or the great stone falls into the sea and a third of the sea life is destroyed and a third of the ships are destroyed? That's possibly could be part of that, part of Babylon's destruction. The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. In her heart she boasts, I sit as a queen. I am not a widow, and I will never mourn. She's got lots of suitors to take the place of her husband. Babylon is also described as a power whose population is made up of diverse races and cultures. The great prostitute who sits on many waters, not just on the water, but on many waters. Then the angel said to me, the waters you saw where the prostitute sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages, many of them. Ancient Babylon was a home for a great number of Jewish exiles, both before and after Israel's captivity. End times Babylon appears to be a home for a great many Jews as well. Then I heard another voice from heaven say, come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues. There are pseudo-Christian cults who use this verse all the time as a way of trying to get people involved in Christendom to leave Christendom, because for them, Babylon's religious system is Christianity. Okay, it's part of the religious system that they think is Christendom, and may well be. There, of course, there's a lot of evil in Romanism, so it could be. Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues. Actually, one of those cult people gave me a book that was entitled this, Come Out of Her. Ancient Babylon was located in present-day Iraq. But the Bible's prophecies combine to make it clear that in times Babylon could not also be located there. Why not? Is there a seaport there? Nope. The Old Testament prophet Zechariah recorded a vision that he received of a wicked woman being taken from her place to establish a new home. Many scholars believe this is a picture of the whore of Babylon in Zechariah 5. This is Zechariah 5. Then the angel who was speaking to me came forward and said to me, "Look up and see what this is that is appearing." I asked, "What is it?" He replied, "It is a measuring basket." Excuse me just a moment. I'm going to lose broadcast audio here while I change. I should be back. Yeah, okay, it shows that I am back. So that's a bad battery. Goes in the bad battery pile. Okay, what is it? It's a measuring basket. This is the iniquity of the people throughout the land. Then the cover of lead was raised, and there in the basket sat a woman. He said, "This is wickedness." And he pushed her back into the basket and pushed the lead cover down over its mouth. Then I looked up, and there before me were two women with the wind in their wings. They had wings like those of a stork, and they lifted up the basket between heaven and earth. "Where are they taking the basket?" I asked the angel who was speaking to me. He replied, "To the country of Babylonia to build a house for it. When it is ready, the basket will be set there in its place." So this is the prophecy that is thought to mean that Babylon will be moved from the Iraqi location and moved to a different location. Babylon is a power that has become seduced by materialism, in addition to, of course, religion, by the things and the pleasures of this world. And after she turns her back on God and becomes a prostitute, she then corrupts the entire earth. Her adulteries are her materialistic, self-centered pursuits that ignore God's grace and power and that pave the way for the self-centered New Age belief system of Antichrist. The Bible is clear that there will be terrible end times persecution of believers. The Antichrist final empire will carry out the majority of this persecution, but John's vision shows that God will also hold Babylon largely responsible for it. Understand that these believers are Jews, as far as we can tell. When John first sees her in his vision, he remarks, "I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus." And when his vision concludes, an angel says, "In her was found the blood of prophets and of the saints, and all who have been killed on the land." Okay? The destruction of Babylon, the fall of Babylon the Great, is complicated to decipher. The great city of Babylon seems to fall at the very beginning from a judgment of fire from God, yet elements of Babylon must survive this judgment because other texts show that she is attacked by the Antichrist and the 10 kings. Then prior to the 7 bowl judgment, an angel proclaims, fallen is Babylon the Great, which made all the nations drink the maddening wine of her adulteries." So there's multiple fallings of Babylon, just like I showed in an earlier slide. However, the 7th bowl judgment itself, the last judgment of Revelation, again mentions Babylon in a great earthquake. The great city split into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations collapsed. God remembered Babylon the Great and gave her the cup filled with the wine of the fury of his wrath. You know, she's been drinking a cup full of what? The prophet's blood and the saints' blood, and now God gives her a cup filled with the wine of the fury of his wrath. Perhaps Babylon is more than just a single city. Perhaps the term great city is indicative of a specific highly populated urban region that may be composed of more than just one contemporary city. The English language has borrowed the word metropolis from the Greek language, and we use it as a synonym for city. Okay? And in fact, Superman used that, didn't he? Yeah, metropolis. In Revelation, the original Greek text refers to Babylon as a megapolis. Megapolis, a big city. It seems that Babylon must be much more than just a single city for it to absorb the many different phases of its destruction. So it may be that Babylon is not a single city, but a network, And that's why there are multiple destructions that go on and why she has multiple identifications. So we'll probably get to that one of these days. The first phase of Babylon's fall will come prior to the attacks on her by the 10 kings and the Antichrist. It will come at a time when she is comfortable in her power over the world and in her arrogance. An angel states that prior to her initial fall, she says, I sit as a queen. I'm not a widow and I'll never mourn. The angel continues and states that despite her attitude, Babylon will be humbled in one day. Therefore, in one day, her plagues will overtake her. Death, mourning, and famine. She will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord who judges her. Babylon's initial destruction will come in one day. It will come directly from God and will be a judgment of fire. Kings of the earth give us even more information when they tell us that this will take place in a single hour. Sounds almost like nuclear, right? When the kings of the earth who committed adultery with her and shared her luxury see the smoke of her burning, they will weep and mourn over her. Terrified at her torment, they will stand far off and cry, woe, woe, O great city, O Babylon, city of power. In 1 hour, your doom has come. Well, it's a figurative hour. It's not an actual 60-minute hour. The merchants of the earth confirm this fact. They also say your wealth has been brought to ruin in 1 hour. And so that helps to verify. Then the sea captains say it also. So we've got 3 that say it ain't going to last long once this begins. After this first phase of judgment, Revelation may hint of another that may come soon after. An angel explains to John how Babylon will fall. Then a mighty angel picked up a boulder the size of a large millstone and threw it into the sea and said, with such violence, the great city of Babylon will be thrown down, never to be found again. So people can speculate this is an earthquake in California falls off the United States into the ocean. That'd be like the millstone falling in there with great violence. Not going to say that, okay? The first judgment of fire that comes from God while Babylon is still ruling over the kings of the earth must come very early in the tribulation. Listen to this now. This is part of my reasoning. Must come very early in the tribulation. The placement of this judgment is not hard to figure out, but first we should look again at how the tribulation will begin. The end times tribulation, or great tribulation, will begin with the opening of the 6th seal. See, now there are more and more who are saying the great tribulation starts in the first half, not with the 6th seal, because the 6th seal is the start of the wrath. So it can't be the great tribulation because it's the beginning of wrath. So it's got to be the great tribulation, okay? And then this author, I took this part from this author, at the time of the rapture, there will be an earthquake, followed by the cosmic signs of the darkened sun, blood, red moon, shower of falling stars. Okay. Well, you have to remember in the book of Revelation, it talks about harvests. Harvests. The grain harvest is the harvest of the Israel saints. It's the rapture of the Israel saints. Okay. And that's what's being spoken of here. These events continue for only a matter of hours, and then the day of the Lord will begin. The wrath of God will begin with great and terrible shaking of the earth. After this happens, the 144,000 are saved and sealed prior to the judgments of the first 4 trumpets. Well, the first 4 trumpets are the seals. You know, before the first 4 trumpets are the seals. And that's where I think the 144,000 are I think they're martyred and raptured straight to heaven when they're martyred, because those martyrs in the fifth seal have to come from somewhere, and there's no real other place other than the red horse, which is the civil war in Israel, and the 144,000. We're going to get into them in much greater detail in the future, but they fit the description of military enlistees in Israel. Okay, so I think that they are military. First trumpet judgment is one of hail and fire mixed with blood that is poured out over a third of the earth. This judgment is reflected in the prophecies of Ezekiel, which also show it coming after an earthquake and after the shaking of the earth that affects all mankind. That's the sixth seal. The fiery hail will come after Israel has been invaded by an alliance of nations led by Magog, which is most likely the Baltic region. That's where Magog was in history. This judgment of fire will destroy the invaders. It will destroy the countries of the invaders and much of the surrounding area, and it will also strike those who live in safety in the coastlands. And they will know that I am the Lord. So this is a war that was not known in those days. This war is like right now the war between Ukraine and Russia. Russia is making a concerted effort to kill the citizenry of Ukraine, right? Not just fighting soldiers, but bombing hospitals and apartment complexes and neighborhoods. That's what it's referring to here, that they will kill those who live in the countries, and that they will destroy the countries of the invaders, not just the invaders, and those who dwell safely in the coastland. It's all out war, all out war. Evil. There will be no, what do they call the Nuremberg rules, of war, where you don't kill civilians. You can only kill those who are wearing a uniform, which is how the terrorists tried to get away with it, because they didn't wear uniforms, so they couldn't be considered enemy combatants. And several United States soldiers over in the Middle East got court-martialed for killing ununiformed terrorists. They don't have uniforms on. That's against the military laws. You're going to prison. Okay. The coastlands mentioned in Ezekiel might be a reference to Babylon, who says to herself, I sit as a queen, I'm not a widow, I'll never mourn. Ezekiel gives the impression that those who live in the coastlands will be taken completely by surprise, and that's how the judgment of fire will come upon Babylon. A ship in the sea will get them. The great prostitute who rules over the nations of the earth and corrupts them with her luxuries will be struck with a judgment of fire at the very beginning of the tribulation. Perhaps the warning that is given of, see now here he says the beginning of the tribulation, and that's the one, as I was skimming through this to see if I could use it, that's what I saw, and I said, oh yeah, that's what I agree with. Okay, perhaps the warning that is given of come out of her, my people, so that you will not receive any of her plagues, is also a veiled reference to a rapture of the saints, and the saints are the Jewish people in the wheat harvest, the grain harvest. The rapture will likely occur only days prior to God's judgment of Babylon, and it will rescue all who accept Messiah Yahushua, their king and Messiah. Okay, I still have 20, how many more slides? 20, 30 more slides that I wiped out. That it because 60 altogether? Okay, well, not that many. Oh, that's right, because I took out some of them. So we'd have plenty of time for the documentary. Okay, in the aftermath of the first trumpet judgment, which will bring fire upon Babylon, the ship captains will gaze on in horror and dismay that the source of their livelihood is gone, but their mourning will not last long, because the second trumpet judgment will quickly follow. Something like a huge mountain, all ablaze, this is the one I was talking about, was thrown into the sea. A third of the sea turned into blood. A third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. Okay? So not only does Babylon get it, but those merchants get it also. Perhaps this is what the angel was referring to when he gave the following prophecy of Babylon. Then a mighty angel picked up a boulder the size of a large millstone, threw it into the sea, and said, with such violence, the great city of Babylon will be thrown down, never to be found again. Prophet Jeremiah gave a prophecy that can only refer to end times Babylon, which may relate to the meteor that will plunge into the sea. The sea will rise over Babylon. Its roaring waves will cover her. Babylon will very likely be directly affected by the first two trumpet judgments. The angel above commented that Babylon would never be found again, but perhaps this refers to Babylon's final demise, because remnants of Babylon, whether it is a city, a collection of cities, or a nation, will survive the first two trumpet judgments. The Antichrist and the 10 kings will then attack this remnant, the Babylonian remnant, in whatever shape it is left, and in the aftermath of the initial outbreak of the tribulation. So that's why I put that in the first half of the tribulation. The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin, leave her naked, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. So, is this think about what is said here. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. That could be a nuclear attack on her location. For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to give the beast their power to rule until God's words are fulfilled. Babylon will first be judged by God Almighty when he causes her to be burned with fire, and at this the kings of the earth will weep and mourn at the loss of their source of luxury. But then once Babylon has been weakened, the 10 kings will conspire with the Antichrist to attack what is left of her. At the first phase of Babylon's fall, the kings of the earth will mourn. At the second phase, they'll take the side of the Antichrist, cease to support her when she's attacked. Babylon will be absorbed into the Antichrist empire to survive throughout the tribulation until the very end, when she then is finally destroyed completely. The seventh bowl judgment is the last judgment of Revelation, and it will cause a great earthquake that will split Babylon into 3 parts. Remember, Babylon is no longer ruling, but there still is a Babylon. Then she will be destroyed completely and forever by God Almighty. This is the passage that describes it. Babylon, the jewel of kingdoms, the glory of the Babylonians' pride, will be overthrown by God like Sodom and Gomorrah. She will never be inhabited or lived in through all generations. No Arab will pitch his tent there. No shepherd will rest his flocks there. But desert creatures will lie there. Jackals will fill her houses. There the owls will dwell, and there the wild goats will leap about. Hyenas will howl in her strongholds, jackals in her luxurious palaces. Her time is at hand, and her days will not be prolonged, Isaiah says. So, all of these animals are Jewish unclean animals. Okay. Because of the Lord's anger, she will not be inhabited, but will be completely desolate. All who pass Babylon will be horrified and scoff because of her wounds. Look at her now. She was something, wasn't she? Look at her now. So desert creatures and hyenas will live there, and there the owl will dwell. It will never again be inhabited or lived in from generation to generation. People use this and say, see, Babylon's not been lived in either. Well, Babylon has been lived in. As God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, along with their neighboring towns, declares the Lord, so no one will live there. No man will dwell in it. I am against you, O destroying mountain, you who destroy the whole earth, declares the Lord. I will stretch out my hand against you, roll you off the cliffs, make you a burned out mountain. No rock will be taken from you for a cornerstone, nor any stone for a foundation. You see what happens when one civilization is destroyed, then the people who re-inhabit the area take the leftover stones and rocks and make a foundation out of them. That's why you have what are called tells in Israel and the Middle East, because they've ended up with a big mound because they kept building one city on top of a destroyed city. Okay, archaeology. All right, so no rock will be taken from you for a cornerstone. To me, that means that probably they'll be radioactive, that people won't be able to use them for building construction projects because they're radioactive. That may or may not be true, but is there any other reason that they would not use the leftover stones? I mean, it says that there's going to be jackals living in their strongholds and hyenas living in their houses and stuff. So there's got to be stones left. Babylon will be a heap of ruins, a haunt of jackals, an object of horror and scorn, a place where no man lives. Her people all roar like young lions, they growl like lion cubs, but while they are aroused, I will set out a feast for them and make them drunk so that they shout with laughter, then sleep forever and not awake. The big last party, okay, declares the Lord. And Revelation 18:2 records fallen. Fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a home for demons and a haunt for every evil spirit, a haunt for every unclean and detestable spirit. How do we know that this is before the millennium? Because all of those demons and everybody will be gone from the earth. They'll be judged and put in the underworld. Apparently, Babylon the Great will be a wildlife refuge during the millennial kingdom. St. Louis Zoo. No, must not be St. Louis Zoo. Must be another zoo. But no one will go there because it will also be inhabited by demons. It will be destroyed like Sodom and Gomorrah, and all who pass by will scoff and be horrified at how she was destroyed. So proud, so self-righteous and arrogant in her day, drunk and shouting with laughter. But the Lord will destroy her in his fury, and she will be as if she had never existed. There's one final text that confirms the chronology of events that make up the beginning of the Great Tribulation as put forth in this book. It is a prophecy given by the obscure Old Testament prophet Haggai, and they are the very last words that this man of God wrote down. And again, the word of the Lord came unto Haggai in the 24th day of the month, saying to Zerubbabel, the governor of Judah, saying, I will shake the heavens and the earth, and I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the heathen, and I will overthrow the chariots, and those that ride in them, and the horses and their riders shall come down, every one by the sword of his brother. In that day, saith the Lord of hosts, I will take thee, O Zerubbabel, my servant, the son of Shealtiel, saith the Lord, and will make thee as a signet, a sign, for I have chosen you, says the Lord of hosts. In this passage, Haggai confirms a number of events that will occur at the very beginning of the tribulation, which will, he mentions the shaking of the heavens and the earth, which will come at the sixth seal, which was also predicted by Ezekiel to come at the time of the Magog invasion. Haggai goes on to describe the Magog alliance, the chariots, horses, riders that will invade Israel. Then he writes that this army will turn against itself like Armageddon. Everyone by the sword of his brother. This is just as Ezekiel predicted, who wrote that prior to the judgment of fire and hail, this army would suffer madness, and every man's sword will be against his brother. Haggai predicts that at this time, the strength of the kingdoms of the heathen will be destroyed. He also writes that at this time, the throne of kingdoms will be overthrown. It has to be Armageddon, right? This is a reference to end times Babylon, which is a great city from where the entire world is ruled. Isaiah referred to end times Babylon as the jewel of the kingdoms and the scepter of the rulers. Jeremiah predicts that the Lord will open up his arsenal to attack her in his wrath, and that the entire earth will tremble. He writes that afterwards the nations of the earth will no longer stream to Babylon. Revelation is clear that Babylon is indeed the throne of kingdoms, for she is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. The last thing Haggai records is that at the time of Zerubbabel, there will be raised up he will become a signet for the Lord. Zerubbabel is one of the olive trees who will be resurrected at the time of the rapture to serve the Lord as a witness during the first half of the 70th week. Joshua will also be resurrected at this time to be the other witness, the other olive tree during this time as predicted in the 3rd and 4th chapters of the prophecies of Zechariah. Now, I've mentioned this on several times that that the two witnesses may not be Moses and Isaiah. Moses and who did I say? What did I say? Yeah, okay. Huh? Elijah, Moses and Elijah, right. But that they might be Zerubbabel and Joshua because they are the only two that are identified as the olive trees and the menorah. Never are the two witnesses identified in any other way. Okay. They are all speculated to be Moses and Elijah. But these are the only two that are named, and it says that they are the olive tree and the olive trees and the menorahs. There's actually relief cuts of them where the olive trees have like pipes that go down from the olives down into the base of the menorahs to provide the light. I don't know if that was ever actually done that way, but there is a relief cutting of that with Zerubbabel and Joshua standing by. Okay. Joshua will also be resurrected this time to be the other witness, the other olive tree during this time as predicted in the 3rd and 4th chapters of the prophecies of Zechariah. Zerubbabel and Joshua were the two men most influential in the rebuilding of the temple after Israel's return from the Babylonian exile. So what's going to happen? What happens in the first half of the week? When Antichrist declares himself to be God, where does he go to sit? In the Holy of Holies in the temple. So during the first half, there will be a rebuilt temple, the third temple. Okay. That's what they say, yeah. And so these men will be instrumental in that rebuilding. Okay? And these two men will also be on the earth when Israel begins to rebuild the temple in the early days of the tribulation. That's what I think. That's been my position. That's why I've hinted at it all along. I've never seen anything that tells us it's Moses and Elijah. Never names them. It's always been an inference because some of the plagues, calling fire down from heaven, some of the plagues that the two witnesses can do were what Moses did. Well, Isaiah called down, I say Isaiah again, Elijah called down fire to burn up the offering. Moses, the plagues. That's why they have been speculated to be the two witnesses. But
God probably didn't want us to know because he didn't tell us who they were.
Yeah, he did.
For sure.
Yeah, in the book of Revelation, it says these are the two olive trees and the two menorah.
Right.
And that goes back to, Yeah, but there's one place where the 2 olive trees and the menorah are named. Only one place. And it's back here in Zechariah. So, I mean, that's like, who shot him? Well, that guy right there shot him. How do you know it was him? Because I know him and I saw him do it. Okay, well, that's good evidence right there. All right, sorry. The great city split into 3 parts. Cities of the nations fell. God remembered Babylon the Great to make her drain the cup of the wine of the fury of his wrath. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery. Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and of earth's nations, earth's abominations. Fallen, fallen, fallen. Yep. The idolatrous prostitute is an excellent opportunity to introduce the subject I have hinted at on several occasions, that the end times is about both participants in God's eternal purpose, as found in Ephesians 1. God's eternal purpose is to what? I'm not even going to, 3 slides to bring it out. To bring all things together in Christ, both in heaven and on the earth. Who goes to heaven? The body of Christ believers. Who's on the earth? Israel. Okay? That's his purpose. Those are the 2 participants. That's what'll happen. Okay. Father Yahweh, we are grateful for your word. We are grateful for your provision in our life. We're grateful to know these things, not the speculation, but the things that we can know for certain. And we give you praise, glory, honor, and power from us to you as part of our homage to you. And we thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen.